Okay, so we're off and running with the third and final game from a very, very chilly Eccles. Um, this one was against another Medieval Scots, but I think a very different version of the army, which is the one with enormous quantities of mediocre longbowmen, which you can see stretching out all the way here and all the way on that one. It's got I think it's a French ally of quality knights and a couple of dismounted foot knights as well. Bit of bit of a tricky one to take on. It puts out a huge amount of shooting. Longbows, as in pretty much all rules, are wildly effective against cavalry and armored knights in particular. This army, because they're all loose formation foot, they're not, apart from these guys, they're not. They're a little bit vulnerable to cavalry, so it tends to want to put down some terrain. I didn't really want to put down much terrain at all, so I think I've dropped a road and something tiny that doesn't even appear on the battlefield. So there's a field here, there's a hill with a field on it. I think there's probably a plantation or something there. So there's some big chunks of terrain. But it is still pretty open. There's nothing really to anchor the flanks of that army. So my plan here is kind of super simple. It's a really, really big army, and it puts out a lot of shooting. So what I'm attempting to do is close incredibly quickly on one flank and just completely overwhelm one flank and try and roll it up, whilst just stopping the rest, or doing as little as I can to stop the rest from swinging around and rolling up my flank. So clearly this is the area that I'm looking to attack. I've got both of the big meat grinder commands over here. The war wagon this time is defending this flank. The tiny cavalry command is just out of shot here on this edge of the table. It's just going to sort of cause trouble and try and draw these guys away. The interesting stuff here though is the baggage. I've deployed my baggage camp over to this side. Now baggage goes down before the army, and by deploying it over there, I've kind of given the impression my army is going to be in this spot. I really want to sort of draw this army into not defending this flank in particular. The other thing is, with this being a field and me having a lot of close formation foot, the close formation foot are pretty terrible in the field and the bowmen are great, but I'm attacking, so I'm moving first, and so that means I've got a reasonable chance of getting through out the other side, or at least a long way through this field pretty quickly. So a couple of kind of surprise packages here. The baggage is a draw, and no one really expects heavy foot to go through fields, even though they move at full speed through a field, so they're not slowed down. Well, they're slowed down in march moves, but not in normal moves, but they can still get through it. But if they get caught in there in the fighting, it's a lot of trouble. So I've definitely got to get them out the other side. That's the job of these light horse, to race forward and pin this lot back, giving these guys time to lurch out of it. So it's all really about the first couple of turns, really, to see what happens, to see if I can wrong foot and catch this Scots army flat-footed. So let's have a look at that. So you can see, obviously pretty decent there. Big rush up this side. The knights have drifted, the cavalry are there. This whole space suddenly needs protecting. Probably didn't think it needed to. These guys are nearly out of there. These guys are going to move up to here. I will be out of this next turn, so I am fighting the open, which is great. I've got spears, supported polearm guys, and my knights facing off against the four knights. The wagon and the crossbowmen are facing off against a couple of these, and this lot have got nothing to play with except the chaps running down the side of the table. So sorry, excuse me. The general here is at the back. He's just sent his light cavalry off. They're racing down, a group of three. It means these guys can't ignore them. They're going to have to react to them. And the fact that I've got one lancer in this light cavalry just gives them a bit of extra poke if they did really want to try and charge in and attack them in the flank. So the game's sort of developing a bit more. The centre of the army, the Scots army, has moved forwards. This wing has swung out a bit to try and make this flank a bit harder to get around. But the sheer weight of stuff, these are both going to go around the edge. These two knights are pretty solid. And there's two troops here. The cavalrymen are vulnerable. They're medium cavalry, but they can hide behind the knights and then jump out and charge in. So here I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, taking on 3 of them. These two will take on another 2. The bowmen and the crossbowmen end up in a shooting exchange with one at the other side, sticking the light infantry in front to try and protect me from shooting. This is an overlap as well. So really I'm saying, well, once this gets into combat, almost up to here, I should have a really big advantage if I can do that cleanly. This may well be a wash. my knights, his knights, my spearmen and supported polearm guys against his knights as well. Bit of a wash. These guys, they can chop through that as long as they wish. That's all fine. And these guys, I'm just trying to keep them out of the game until I can roll up from here and hopefully get into the baggage as well. So same sort of thing is happening on the other side. That big block of bowmen is swinging out. The army doesn't have great command and control to move so many people. So what it does mean, though, is that these people are just trying to draw them in. They think there's actually an opportunity to maybe pick off a few as well. So they've gone around the edge, formed a line, they're moving up to threaten them. It is going to force them to do something. It's going to make it hard for them to chase the general, who, if he does get shot, will be in all sorts of trouble. And this commander has got an awful lot to do, and he just doesn't have the command and control capability to react here and push these forward towards my baggage, which, you know, the fact you can't do both of those is great. That's part of the game plan. So what's happening over this? Yes, it's still swinging more. Some of them had to turn to face off. The others are swinging out. They're trying to chase my general down. But again, this commander's just moved off the hill, but now it's in 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, which is going to be a bit of a challenge for it. And this stuff of mine is sort of expendable. It can kind of get out of the way if need be, but it's just tied up a lot of the enemy army in with very little, about 30 points of my 200, I think. So as this is sort of developing, what I've missed really is one of the knights on the end has rushed off and has attacked my bowman, so it's starting to kind of mince up the end of this line. I'm not quite in position to attack, but getting closer to do that. These guys are all sort of pushing forwards as well. We're trying to do a bit of an exchange of shooting here. This thing is slowly starting to wheel around, but the wagon is fine there. I've drawn these light horse back. They would just become pincushion, but now they can maybe be a reserve as well. So this is still setting up for, I'm 4 wide, those knights are 3 wide, so it's tough for them to come in. Something's going to have to happen here to do that, but this charge is still teed up for almost the next turn. What I'm trying to do is minimize shooting, minimize the number of turns shooting, but clearly the bowman can put out a reasonable amount of fire. There's a hit there on my Pervice spearmen, who are normally quite difficult to hit. There's been a hit on my bowman. This is damage from facing the knights, but you know, in some ways, if this guy ends up spending a couple of turns chewing up all these bowmen and these guys get in, I'm still happy with that exchange. I can let these poor archers take the brunt of one of these really pokey units if it means I can blast through there and start getting around the back of it as well. So what's happened here is, this is the move that I was talking about. The knights have gone in, the cavalrymen have swung wide and gone in as well. The light horse have moved round. One's acting as an overlap on the end of this line. One's in a position to charge into the rear or whiz off to the baggage. That's the one with lancers as well. These guys are rushing forwards whilst this battle is still just about hanging on. And now they're in combat. There's only a couple of them able to shoot, so this guy's kind of safe. These guys might take a hit, but even so, the medium bowmen can be pretty vulnerable to infantry, heavy close formation foot when they get in. So it's a race. Can they get in and get through before these guys deal with all of my archers and then turn around and come back? But this should be pretty much knife through butter stuff. So back to the middle. The wagon has deployed. I've swapped it out for one without horses, so it's now slightly tougher. These guys are still holding off. This is still a bit of a challenge for them. This is not a great formation to be charging into. There's extra width. There's all sorts of things there. They're going to have to take some chances here. The bowmen are still struggling to get round and do too much, but the wagon's pretty tough against shooting. So here we go. Knights are in. That one's knocked a hole. That one's knocked a hole and have chosen to advance. If this one advanced, it would be in trouble. It could get its flank turned by the enemy bowman. This guy's still lurking there. These are now within charge range. Looks like the knight has killed one of these guys, but it means he's probably going to have to conform across into this one. Bad news for them if you're a crossbowman, but good news for these guys. It buys you an extra turn or two to chew up the bowman, which is your principal job. Over here on the opposite side, yep, I've gone in with the lancer. He's got a couple of overlaps. Medium foot are normally okay, but 2 overlaps and a lancer makes a difference. There's 2 hits suddenly on that one, and that's in deep peril, placing him in peril as well, and creating, when that dies, or assuming that dies, a huge gap for these chaps to run through to the baggage. So here's here's the wagon. They're getting ready. The guy's giving someone the finger at the back, which is all good. He probably should be facing forwards though. And the crossbowmen are kind of peeking out, doing a tiny little bit of sniping. But as a block, the longer this thing doesn't start fighting, that just means the longer it's going to occupy all of this part of the enemy army, possibly this guy as well. So I'm quite happy for that not to fight. It's now set up, it's where it's going to be, and its job is to just exist long enough for this fight to resolve itself, and the stuff on my my left wing as well. So it's gone in. Somebody's decided to attack here. We've got 3 knights. I think we've got the foot knight they've swung across and had a go at my my knights as well. Some of them are into the war wagon. This is this is a better combat for me in theory. This is not a bad combat with my rear support. This is pretty equal. That's tricky, but once the wagon's deployed, it's still got a factor of 1. It's not impossible to do well there. And over on the other side, though, you can see one of the bowmen is still hanging on. The others are kind of desperately trying to get out of the way. He's conformed to this ongoing combat and done a bit of damage, but that's good. For some reason, these are still not in. Maybe I'm a bit becalmed with pips, or maybe other players had a go. But look, there's 2 knights there who are now free to attack whatever they want, really. There's this cavalry that can chase off these guys. The baggage is starting to look very, very close there, and really there's now only, let's say he's in real trouble, there's only kind of 3 bowmen here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things going to have a go at them, which is probably end of the road for this entire flank, really, the Scots pretty soon. Here's the gleaming spires of the Hungarian baggage, the Hungarian home city. As you can see, these bowmen blurring in the distance. They're somewhat conflicted. Do they try and join in the attack on the wagon? Do they make a run for the baggage? What does their general do? He's still trying to do other stuff in other parts of the field and deal with this problem just over in the distance here. It's got a lot to do, very much a lot to do, and a lot of decisions to make. So the fight is ongoing. Looks like I've done a fair bit of damage against the foot knights. Not surprising. The wagon's actually winning against the foot knights there. The enemy knights have done a green, 1 point of damage on me there, a couple of points of damage on the halberdiers. My spearmen have done some damage on the knights, so that's a bit of a wash. That's not too bad. I can take an exchange there, given how well stuff's going on this other side. So here, still, I must have been very becalmed with pips. There's a little bit more damage on this bowman, but these guys still somehow haven't got in. These guys still haven't managed to charge. That must have been a frustrating turn with the general busy doing other stuff, or not able to decide what to do. Here we go. So more bowmen have moved up, but this one that I was fighting has just evaporated. So these guys are now suddenly free, and this is just all in bits and pieces. And as soon as these rush off down here towards the baggage, this whole side of the enemy army's got no targets really to look for. So in the middle then, looks like a couple of knights have managed to break through the middle. I've lost a knight, I've lost a polearm guy. My spearman is still fighting away with an overlap. I've killed a foot knight there, so someone's going to have to slide across. These guys are still intact. This fight is still going on, but again, all these bowmen are still out of it, and we're looking at kind of not quite a 50-50 exchange at the moment, but not far off in the middle, which against their best troops is something I'm still reasonably happy with. Over here, finally, this looks like this starts to coordinate. The knights are slamming in, they're sliding across, the spearmen are coordinating. He's finally got rid of the bowman. Puts my halberdiers in a bit of a tricky situation, but we'll have to deal with that. And this fight is still going on. But look at this. This is now actually only 1 bowman out of this whole command that used to stretch across here. And I think some of the squishy bits behind look like they're in trouble as well. And this guy, even if he turns in, there's going to be a lot going on for him. Over here, yep, that lancer from the right flank and his light horse with him, they're now making a run for the baggage. They're being pursued by frantic archers, but I think 4 legs good, 2 legs not quite as fast really, and they're outpacing them at quite some speed. And let's see what's going to happen next. Yep, there they go. They're into the baggage. That's got the enemy baggage. That's another 4 points of losses towards the enemy army. These guys are now facing off against my general. He might be tempted to have a go, actually. He's pretty good in the open against them, being a general as well. And now that they're safe, looks like I'm actually chasing some other light foot here away as well. All this part of the board is mine, and the back of the enemy army is kind of exposed. So here we are, and this is pretty much the end state of it. The baggage is gone. This wing has pretty much completely collapsed. This knight here, he has gone back and gone through my my halberdiers, but now he's being faced off by spearmen and cavalry. Knights chewing into bowmen in the open. That's going to go down. This fight is still ongoing. But look at this, the wagon has managed to kill the heavy infantry, the dismounted knights facing it, which is a spot of luck. All these guys are nearly at the baggage, but this light horse, remember I pulled it away back here and left it as reserve. That's come back just to pin them, to stop them chasing in. I guess these guys could do something about that, but just in the nick of time before they reach my baggage, I've reached his. I've done so much damage over here. This whole chunk of it's sort of gone, and that's a victory for the Hungarians to give them 2.5 wins out of 3 on the weekend.